This time of year is often when we think, oh my gosh, how are we already in April? It feels like the year is absolutely flying by, and maybe you're feeling like there's still so much you want to do, or maybe Q1 didn't go as well as you'd like. But whatever you're feeling in today's episode, we're sharing a framework for resetting yourself for Q2 so you can have a clearer mind and make Q2 more productive.
I love doing these quarterly resets. We haven't done one in a while because obviously at the beginning of last quarter, we were talking all about New Year's. But I love going into Q2 probably because spring is my favorite season. I don't know if that's a hot take. I love spring so
No,
much,
not at
probably
all.
because I love it, especially living in the north. You're coming from a period of it's snowing. We got 2 feet of snow this year, and now it's sunny and 75 degrees outside. Like, it's such a good time. And it's also just such a good time to, with that, reset all of your habits and all of that because you probably were resting and hibernating for the last 3 months. I also think going into Q2, it's a really good reminder that you still have so much time to accomplish your New Year's goals. We always put so much pressure on, setting New Year's goals, then making sure we're going after them. But I think sometimes setting goals for your quarters can be a lot more productive than setting them for New Year's as well, because kind of morph into the timeline that you give your goals. So if you're listening to this and you set some New Year's goals, but then you didn't really do much in Q1 to actually go after them, this is a good episode to remind you that you still have a lot of time.
I love Q2 because I feel like I always start the year being obviously really motivated, which I feel like a lot of us are super motivated for the year. And I'm like, let me do this, 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 this. And then I think Q2 is where I kind of take a second to say, okay, here's what I did in Q1. And I want to keep that motivation in Q2, but I want to be really practical about it. I feel like once the year is started a little bit, I have a better idea of, okay, here's how my routines are going. Here's how things are flowing. And Q2 is when I can really reset and make sure that I get the rest of the year to be exactly what I want it to be. And that's the energy I've had for this year. I am so ready. I am ready and I am making 2026 just like my most productive year yet. The year that I really do all the things I say I want to do. And I think Q2 is a really good time to just take a second and reflect and reset. And that's why we're doing this episode today.
I also think, I don't know why, I know this isn't a unique experience because I posted about it on my TikTok and everyone agreed with me. Q1 is so messy for some reason. I was talking about it in like the landscape of my finances because Q1 was an absolute disaster with my money for some reason. I don't know why because there was 2 feet of snow outside. So I was just like kind of sitting inside a lot, but I still ended up spending so much money and I just felt very disorganized with my finances in Q1 and I was posting about that and everyone was agreeing with me. So I feel
Mm.
like Q1 is just overall like a messy time frame. Maybe you're resting a little bit more than usual, so your routines aren't as good. You're doing a little bit more of like laying on the couch. But going into Q2, I feel like it is such a time of resetting. Like spring cleaning is obviously associated with Q2, and that's for good reason. It's a time to reset and just remind yourself of what this year is supposed to be and look ahead to all of the fun things that are coming up.
Yeah. And I think that brings us in nicely to kind of going through how we're doing a Q2 reset, how you can do a Q2 reset. And we talked about this in our last reset episode. And we're probably going to say it in all of these reset episodes as like one of the first things you need to do, because I think it is a really good way to just like kind of create your foundation for getting yourself reorganized. And it's to just reset your physical space. In March, I was like sick the first 2 weeks of March. Then I had an endometriosis flare that was like horrible, like one of the worst ones I've had in so long. I was down for the count for like 4 or 5 days. Then I was traveling for a week. And then I came back and I was literally looking at my space like, what happened? Like, I was like, oh my gosh. I just feel like I got so behind on everything in my apartment and disorganized. Like I have this office closet and it keeps my travel stuff, like all my suitcases and then the sheets and stuff for my guest bed and all of my work stuff, like tripods and cameras, whatever. And that closet looked like a disaster. I'm probably going to put a video out when I was like vlogging, cleaning it because and expose myself. It was so bad, just so disorganized. And I was like, why? And every time I would look at it, because like I have to walk through the closet to like go to the bathroom that's attached to my second bedroom. And every time I'd walk through it, I was just like, ugh, 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 I need to do this. And I was like, why are we leaving it here? Like, let's just actually reset. And I think that your physical space impacts mentally how you feel so much. So if your physical space is not feeling organized and it's just like messy, it's a good way to just kind of like come back to center. So I took like a weekend to just clean that out, reorganize it. I went through and got rid of like just random stuff that you know what I mean? Like using up some beauty products I had, reorganizing my closet, just really getting things together and checking things off my to-do list in regards to my physical space. And I feel like that made me feel like, okay, we can go into the quarter with like a fresh mind.
I also think when it comes to resetting your space, it's not just cleaning up Q1's mess, but it's also making better systems for Q2. Last week, I was in Florida and we were staying at my friend's apartment. She has this like beautiful 3 bedroom apartment in Florida, and which is so funny. Like it's just her, but she has a 3 bedroom because she loves hosting and she wants us to all come visit all the time. So we were all down there, and her apartment is immaculate. It is immaculate. And the reason why it's so clean and organized is because she set up the systems that allow her to keep her space clean. And all weekend, I was literally looking around her apartment, being like, okay, I need to do this. I need to do this. And they're little things, but they're little things that make your life so much easier that you don't even realize. For example, the one night I slept on her couch, and her nightstand beside her couch had like a phone charger, but then the phone charger had a little, I don't know the word that I'm looking for here, but a little thing that kind of like stuck it to the nightstand so that you
Oh,
don't have
yeah,
to
yeah, yeah.
reach behind the couch to plug your phone in at night. And I'm like, oh my gosh, wait, this is genius, because I'm always like, one, I'm always going up into my bedroom to grab my phone charger and then bringing it downstairs to plug my phone in. And then I'm like reaching behind my couch to plug it in. Like, just buy an extra phone charger and get the little thing to secure it to the end table. And it's going to make your life so much easier. So I feel like going into Q2, that's a big thing for me, is like, how can I not only clean my space and reset it that way, but then also how can I make my space a lot more organized and make my life easier going into Q2. I feel like we kind of discount all of those small little inconveniences, but if your space actually was super optimized for what you need it to be, if everything's 1% easier, that's going to make your day so much easier. And then that's going to make your week and your month so much easier. So that's something that I'm thinking about as well.
Yeah, I started doing this because my physical space, I think, is something that I don't know. I think people have this perception of me that I'm like an ultra organized person. And I feel like I used to be in my apartment back in Massachusetts. I was so organized. I had such a good cleaning routine. Like everything was really good. Here, I feel like because this space is a little smaller, things feel like they're more on top of each other almost. Like I don't have as much storage. So I have to be more, I can't just like tuck things away. I don't have as much like spots to do that. But I've been trying to just get into a better system for like keeping my physical space looking good. And one thing that I decided to do, which is one of my Q2 goals I'll talk about in a little bit too, but I got myself back on an early morning routine because I realized like nothing good happens for me after 9 p.m. I just sit on my phone. So like good night and goodbye. We're getting into bed at 9 p.m. and we're waking up early. And when I wake up in the morning, I will either do like a 1 hour workout in the morning or I will pick something to do like in my space. So this morning I did the dishes, I emptied the dishwasher, and I had 3 pieces of clothing that I needed to hand wash. And I had just been putting off hand washing them because like that's a whole process. So I like hand washed them and then like hung them to dry. And then I started work early and I like walked a few miles and everything. But the other day I did my workout in the morning. So then after work, I choose one after work activity that is like typically something for my space. And I don't remember what I cleaned, but I cleaned something in my space that needed it. And so that has been helping me like keep up with stuff more because it's kind of like I'm just picking one thing to do. Today it's going to be scrubbing the toilets, which not fun,
Not
but like they
fun.
need to be done. And the thing is when I actually just do one thing a day, like it's literally going to take me 10 minutes to scrub the toilets today. And then guess what? I'm going to have clean toilets and I can move on with my life. And tomorrow it's probably going to be cleaning the showers. It just like breaks it up in a way that feels easier. And I like the idea of one thing a day because I'm big on momentum. So like I'd rather do like one little thing every day than like a big, huge reset because that just works better for my brain and how I think about habits. So I agree. It's not just about like resetting and then ending up back in the same place at the end of Q2, but like how do I actually reset to a place where I don't end up in the same place at the end of Q2 if you are feeling like your physical space kind of fell to the wayside.
I love that. And I think that kind of goes into It's a really good time to reconsider your habits and almost your standards going into Q2. This is something that I've been thinking about a lot in the last couple of weeks. What are my habits around keeping my space clean? And one habit that I've been absolutely loving lately is habit stacking my they call it a closing shift. It's the last like 30 minutes to maybe up to an hour after your workday on a weeknight, and it's called the closing shift, meaning that you are just like picking up your space. A lot of people will do it right before bed, but I actually like to do it right after I'm done with work. I work from home, close my computer, put on a podcast or an audiobook, and I clean my space. I also walk Bella during that time. So take her on a walk and then clean my space. And I habit stack it with listening to a podcast or listening to an audiobook. And I've been loving that so much lately because one, like you kind of just get lost in the podcast or the audiobook. I've been trying to listen to more things that like teach me something. So that's habit stacking with some type of like personal curriculum. But it's also making it so that by the end of that 30 minutes to an hour, you can actually relax in your space because your space is 100% clean. And then, like you just said, by the time the weekend rolls around, you don't have to spend your weekend doing a full reset because you've been picking up your space every single day. And I'll spend like 15 to 20 minutes picking up after myself since I do work from home. My space will like get kind of crazy during the day. And then I'll usually do one more like big chore, whether I have to scrub the toilets or vacuum or whatever it may
Mhm.
be, but doing some type of like big chore. So I do think that this is a good time to think about those habits that you want to implement going into Q2 and kind of reset them. You also mentioned the morning routine. Q2 is such a good time to reset your morning routine because now it's light in the morning again. I have
Mm.
totally gotten out of my morning routine in Q1 because it's dark out and it's freezing and Bella's laying in bed and Alex is laying in bed and I don't want to get out of bed when it's freezing cold and dark, but now that we're going into Q2 and it's nice outside again and it's light out, I've been trying to get back into waking up earlier.
I love that you called it like thinking about your standards in Q2 because I've definitely mentioned this in the podcast and we should have my friend on here, but I have a friend who's a mental health coach and she actually hosts a podcast of her own as well. And she's like one of the most disciplined people that I know. And she always says, I think it's that your values create your standards and your standards create your boundaries. And she has said, she's like, everyone has standards for things, but like I forget how she words it, but it's so profound the way she words it. But basically, she says like you can see someone's values and the standards that they hold for themselves. And so everyone has like values around how they take care of their space, and you can see it in the standards that they have in their space. And she said something along the lines of that about like your physical space one time, and it clocked me so hard because I was like, if someone did look at my space, they would not think that I value like having a pristine space because I definitely would get behind on taking care of certain things. Like I'd be like, "Oh my gosh, I really need to vacuum," you know? And I'm like, that's not the standard. I want to hold myself to a higher standard because when I think about the future home I want to have and like what I want, the expectations of my future self and who I want to become, I'm like, I want to be someone who does have like your friend who has the really nice apartment. Like I want to be the person who actually does really, really value her space so much that she holds herself to the standard of keeping that space looking really nice. And that just means that my habits need to change so that I can hold myself to that standard. And I think it was such a kind of a wake up call of just being like, yeah, like, why do I have clothes on the floor? Pick them up. Like, do you look like somebody who really values the space that you have? No. Why are your clothes on the floor? You know what I mean? Or even just like, I really hate vacuuming and I hate mopping. I need to get a new vacuum and a new mop because the one I have sucks and that's why I hate doing it. But
No, you have
I'm
to get the
like,
wet dry vac that I have.
I
Grace and I
do.
had this full on conversation when we were in person together about vacuuming and mopping. And I have, if you hate mopping, you need a wet dry vac, okay? It mops and vacuums at the same time. I have one on my entry floor, like right when you walk in my door, and I use it almost every single day because it's cordless, so it takes 2 seconds to pull out, and it mops and vacuums at the same time. And having a dog, she tracks so much dirt in, so it's necessary.
I need to just get a better one. And this is something also, this is like an aside, I guess, but I think like when it comes to your habits and your routines, of course, like you don't need to go out and like buy a bunch of things and think that they're going to solve your problem. If you haven't used a planner in the past, buying your 10th planner, like it's probably not going to work. You know what I mean? It's probably not going to solve your problem. However, I do think that it's worth investing in things that make your routines easier. Like I have a walking pad in my apartment. It's like $125 and I use the crap out of that thing. I walked like 3 miles today. I walk like usually about 3 miles a day if I'm using it. And I use it so often. So it's like that has helped me get my steps in, be more active, whatever. It's worth the investment. Same thing when it comes to vacuuming and mopping. I hate doing it. It's just because mine sucks and it doesn't like pick enough stuff up. And then I feel like I'm never getting my floors super clean. And in order to mop, you got to like put your whole dang back into it. I'm really sick of it. So I'm like, okay, it makes sense. If I want to hold myself to the standard of like, I keep my space looking very clean, where are the friction points? Okay, I hate the vacuum that I have. I'm going to sell it and just get something new and like get something that actually cleans my floors better and that I want to use. And then I will make the habit of figuring out, okay, when in my schedule am I doing this, which I've now done with my routines. But I just think it's interesting to think about like, who's the woman that I want to become? And am I holding myself to that standard? Am I saying like, I want to own a house and I want that house to be clean and well taken care of? So how am I reflecting that same value right now in the space that I have? And I think Q2 is a good point to like kind of assess that and make changes if you need to.
I love this conversation around standards. They say your identity is made up in the standards that you hold yourself to when no one's watching. I don't know where I heard that from. Probably on TikTok. That's where I get all my information. um, but if you really think about that, your identity, your self identity, which is rooted in literally everything, like how you show up, the actions that you take, your identity is made up of the standards that you hold yourself to when no one's watching. And when I heard that, that was kind of like a really big wake up call for me too, because if you think about it, there's certain things that you only do when people are around. For example, Alex is gone right now. He's been gone for the last couple of weeks. And when he's home, I do a really good job of eating full meals. I feel like that's just such a boy thing. Like boys are really good at eating 3 full meals and they like don't snack in between and the meals are
Girl,
balanced.
you're
But
going to be good at it too. Ladies, we have to eat, okay?
I know, but girls just snack all day and don't eat a full meal. And I was literally, when we hopped onto this, I was eating cereal because I
Oh my
like
gosh.
realized it was past lunchtime and I needed to eat something. But when Alex left for deployment, I was like, I'm not going to fall back into the habit of or the standard that I just skip dinner and like eat cereal for dinner or snack on tortilla chips because I didn't plan anything. Like my standard is that no, I make a full dinner. I make healthy meals. I make well balanced meals. And that's my standard. When you think about those standards that you hold yourself to when no one's watching, like it might be hard for you to keep your apartment clean because no one's coming into your apartment. Okay, well, that doesn't matter. No one's
Mhm.
watching. But what standard do you hold your apartment to when no one's watching? And I think that that's a really good way to frame it.
Absolutely. Okay, let's transition to our next kind of section. We talk about doing like a physical reset, but then we always talk too about when you're kind of like resetting for Q2, we both just like to just kind of assess where we are and just like look back at Q1 and be like, all right, what went well? What didn't go well? Which goals did you make meaningful progress on and why? Like, which ones did you not? And I think it's good to look back and I don't know, not like appreciate yourself, celebrate yourself. I don't know what the right word is, but just like look at Q1 and be like, where did I really try and like what went well and where am I still like not feeling the most aligned? And I think for me, I made meaningful progress on my career. That was something that was a priority to me in Q1 and I talked about this in the Q&A episode and I was kind of just keeping it short and quick. Candidly, we were on a very tight timeline filming that Q&A. We had like I think Erin
We
had
had
a
like
meeting or
30
something right
minutes.
after. Yeah, we were trying to really cram things in. So that's why I was like, I'm not going to go in depth here, but let me know if y'all want to hear more. But I went full-time content creator in Q1 and it was like a big decision because it was something I've been like toying with I guess for a little bit. And back in January, if you listen to the podcast and if you follow me on Instagram, you probably know that I'm Christian. And so I prayed in the beginning of January. I was just like, God, whatever's not meant for me in my life right now, just like yank it out, like remove it out and move it out quickly. And within a week, literally, I had this one freelance client who was paying me a pretty substantial amount of money each month. And literally one day I submit videos to them. They say, oh my gosh, we love these. These are amazing. Great job, whatever. And literally it was like 9 minutes later, nine, exactly nine, they send another message being like, hey, just an update from us. We're actually going to pause for the remainder of the month, which like technically they're not allowed to do based on our contract, but I'm not gonna, again, I was like, look, I prayed the prayer and this was absolutely yanked out of my life. And after that point, I was just kind of like, okay, I feel like it is abundantly clear the direction that I need to go in. And so a couple weeks later, I had a conversation with another freelance client of mine about the project we were working on together. I didn't think that it was where they should be spending their money right now. I was like, I think it could go elsewhere and be more impactful. And I told them that. And so we wrapped up what we were doing. And then I had one other client that I said, hey, look, you know, I called them and it was kind of an extenuating circumstance with them, something they were going through. And we ended up deciding to conclude our work together. And each contract ended for like a different reason, but it just, each one felt like it was the right time, like to conclude it based on the situation that was going on within each one. And I thought, you know what? This is an opportunity for me to like be a full-time content creator. And I also think too, from the like finance side, to give you all like the behind the scenes, I could make $10,000 a month freelancing, no problem, working part-time. That wasn't the issue. I was making good money from it. But I always think about the time in versus money out ratio when it comes to the entrepreneurship decisions that I make. And they say, like my startup client, you know how like there's corporate lingo, there's startup lingo. And one of the things they say in startups is like, is the juice worth the squeeze? And it's, yeah, I'm like, come on, guys. But I just started to feel like the juice was not worth the squeeze, if you will. Like the amount of time that was going into it. Yes, I was making, maybe 10K a month working part time, but I knew that if I took those part-time hours and I invested them into content, there's a much higher potential ROI, just simply knowing like where I could grow that business and also where I could grow like the podcast if I'm able to put more time into it. And so I made that choice. And so I'm really proud of that decision and I am like really happy with it. And I mean, my page grew like 20,000 followers in a span of like what, 2 months from the style series. And that was, I think, a result of me having more time to be able to work on my content and be creative. So I'm really happy about that. And that's something that I think went really well in Q1. And now I'm thinking about where I'm taking that in Q2. And I reset my morning routine, which I know I talked a little bit about, but I got myself back into an early morning routine, which is something that I've wanted to do for a while. And I just needed to like just bite the bullet and just start to set that alarm really early and have a few rough days. But now that I'm in that routine, oh my gosh, like I am now like a proponent of an early morning routine. And it's helped me also get more active, which is something I started to do at the end of Q1. Now that I'm really healed from surgery and feeling better, I want to be strong again. I lost a lot of strength, not being able to be active for the last several months and the months leading up to surgery. And so I want to be strong. Like I want people to look at me and be like, "Oh, she's strong." I want to be able to like lift my groceries and feel powerful, and like take the stairs and not be winded and just like I don't know, I realized how much strength I've lost and like I used to be able to pick up, I used to be able to hip thrust 285 pounds. I think if I tried to hip thrust like 75, I'd be struggling right now. So, I just want to get back to being strong. But I started to make progress on all those things in Q1. So,
No, I love that. And on the career side, I know this is a conversation that you and I've had a couple times off camera, but I just think, especially when it comes to freelancing, all the time that you spend freelancing is time you're spending building up someone else's business instead of building up your own business. And at some point, you get to a point where you have to take the risk to say, I want to spend more time building up my own business because I know long term that juice is going to be worth the squeeze, like you just said. But when it comes to building up someone else's business, it's always going to be time in versus money out. That time in component always has to be there. So I totally think you made the right decision in taking the leap of faith to build up your own business. And obviously we have really big goals on the podcast as well. And that's something that we're starting to talk about is like, okay, how much more time can we dedicate to this podcast to really make it what we want it to be long term, but that it does require a time commitment from both of us. So that's something that we're thinking about. On my end, one thing that I did make meaningful progress on in Q1 was I made substantial progress on paying down my mortgage in Q1, which was a really big goal for me. It still is a really big goal for me throughout 2026. And the reason why it's a big goal for me is because I know I've talked about this on the podcast before, but I just view money and how do I want to say this? I view it as the lower my bills are, the more freedom I have, right? Like I paid off my car loan, I paid off my student loan because the lower my bills are, the less money I have to make to sustain my lifestyle. And that makes me feel more free. And now I have a mortgage and the amount is fine. It's about the same amount as I was paying in my rent. But I still view it as okay, if I can make extra payments to pay down my mortgage, that's going to lower my monthly payment because I can recast in the future or refinance if interest rates go down. But the lower my bills are, the less monthly expenses I have and the more quote unquote financially free I'll feel. So I did make substantial progress on that in Q1 and I posted videos about it. I will say the progress that I made on paying down my mortgage in Q1 was a result of my financial position from 2025, specifically like late 2025, so like Q4 basically, because all of the money that I'm making in Q4, that's money that I can transfer from my business account into my personal. And then so it's a little bit delayed. It's not like, oh, I made all this money in Q1 and so I was able to put it onto my mortgage. It was kind of like, well, I had some money left over from taxes and all of that, but I still did make substantial progress. So I'm really happy with that. And it's kind of like putting me into a good spot to be more excited about paying down more of it for the rest of 2026. And then the other one is this is still kind of like I guess this is also like a career goal that I made progress on in Q1. I feel like I did a good job of setting up better systems as a creator to allow me more, not even necessarily like time freedom, but allow me to do more in my business moving forward. The big one is I set up a team and I hired a team. I hired a couple of people in Q1. I hired someone to help me with my newsletter. I hired an editor. So I want to get back into YouTube. That's like one of my Q2 goals. So she's been helping me like edit some of my short form content, not really like the vloggy edits, but more just like the raw edits on a lot of my talking to camera videos, which is allowing me to increase the quantity of content that I'm putting out. And then we hired someone to help us with social clips for the podcast. So I'm really like putting the foundations in place to have better systems to allow me to do more as a creator for the rest of 2026.
I love that. I love hearing about your goals. Like, as I'm
No,
listening,
and
I'm like
I think
I'm like, I'm like, "Okay, pay down the mortgage." I'm like, "Okay, period." I'm like, "Get lower payments." I'm like, I don't know, I like it's funny because, like, obviously, Erin and I are friends, and we talk outside the podcast, but then when we're on the podcast is when I get the juicy like, I get all the juicy details. Like, Erin will just, like, not say anything, and then she'll show up to the podcast and, like, drop some crazy lore. That's, like, one thing that she always does, like, some crazy update or whatever. So I just, like, I love hearing it. It's, like, crazy to think too about how much progress you can make in just the span of 3 months, like, thinking about setting up a whole team for your business and getting into, like, a better flow and even just paying down your mortgage and, using, yeah, like, leftover tax money or money from Q4, which even if you don't own a business, like if you're listening and you don't own a business, like maybe you did get a tax refund or maybe you got a bonus at the end of the year or whatever it may be. And just thinking about like how you can leverage those things to be able to, maybe make progress on similar goals. But it's crazy to think about how much can happen in 3 months, but also too how much can not happen when you're like, inactive with certain things or like when you let goals just fall to the wayside, which I definitely did in Q1.
Yeah, and that's definitely what we'll talk about next. But I do feel like before we move on to, what are your Q2 goals? I think that it is important just to reiterate, like, it is so important to sit down and reflect on what you actually did accomplish in Q1 and get really granular with it. Like, for example, as a content creator, I feel like it's so easy for your day to day to just feel very monotonous. Like maybe you grew 20 followers in a day. And like when you expand that over the quarter, you're like, oh, I didn't even grow at all. But no, go back into your analytics and it's probably going to tell you that you did grow like 3 to 5,000 followers over the last 90 days. And that still is progress. Or even just small things like how many videos did you post and little things like that. Like take time to celebrate the progress that you made. Like, where were you on January 1st and where are you today? Because you definitely did a lot more than you realize. And you can't just like gloss over that before you set your goals for Q2.
What were some of the goals that you abandoned in Q1 or that you maybe didn't make as much progress on? And then I'll share mine.
I feel like we all set like health and fitness goals at the beginning of the year. That's like a very popular New Year's thing to do. I think one thing in Q1 for me, I already kind of touched on the fact that my morning routine just like hasn't been amazing lately. But I think in general, health and fitness has been a little bit to the wayside. I've talked about this on social media over the last month, but especially earlier in Q1, I was just doing the absolute bare minimum at the gym. Like I would go to the gym and walk on the treadmill for 30 minutes, like maybe at a 2 incline and like scroll on my phone during those 30 minutes. And like obviously that's an extreme example, but it was really the bare minimum. And I think that compounds into so many other health and fitness things too. Like I wasn't meal prepping. I definitely have not been eating my body weight in protein, which is something that I used to be very good at because I was just very cognizant about eating 3 full meals and making sure my snacks were pretty high protein. So I think in general, health and fitness was just an area that I didn't make a priority in Q1 at all. But I also think that that's a good reminder that not everything is going to be a priority all the time. Like if you're trying to make progress on every single area of your life, you might not be able to give one thing enough time and attention. So that's okay. Like when you're going through this and thinking about which life pillar you maybe didn't focus on in Q1, don't get down on yourself for it. Just make sure that that's an area that maybe you put more attention to in Q2, which is definitely what I'm going to be doing.
Yeah, I think in Q1, what did I not do so hot at? Okay, health and fitness. So I don't think I've talked about this on the podcast, but it's just like a sensitive topic. So I try to be careful with like what I say about it. But before having endometriosis surgery last year, because I was so sedentary, I like gained a little bit of weight. And also just like the inflammation in my body was absolutely like it was so bad. Like I see pictures of myself in my face. I just look so puffy, and I felt that way. I felt awful. I felt sick all the time. It was just horrible. And post-surgery, like it did reduce like a lot of the inflammation that I was experiencing since it is like a whole body disease, but I wanted to make it a priority to focus on eating not just to nourish my body, but like eating more protein, more fiber, and just paying attention to what I eat in an effort to lose a little bit of the weight that I gained pre-surgery. I did start doing that in like February. I think it was February or late January. I started tracking like everything that I eat, and it's been very eye opening. And I have lost weight as a result. So that worked. However, when I set that goal, I was like, I'm going to start working out and like going to the gym because I was like, I want to be strong again. And did my apartment gym see me more than one time? No. I use like ClassPass and I pay for the plan that gets me like 33 credits a month. And I looked in my account the other day and I have 66 credits to redeem, which means that I went a whole month without booking a single class because they all rolled over. And I was like, oh my goodness gracious. So I did a class last night and I'm going to do one tomorrow night and I'm going to my apartment gym today, but it goes back to the whole like values standards thing. I'm like, I value longevity in terms of like living a long time. And I try to eat healthy. I try to nourish my body. I think about like I go to the doctors routinely, whatever. However, having like muscle mass and working out and they say like running and like walking upstairs and things is really good for your joints and whatever. I'm like, those things are really, really important for longevity too. And I need to be showing up for myself in that way if I say that I value being healthy for a long time. And so I definitely did not do the best at that. The other thing I feel like I didn't do the best at in Q1 that I am like, I'm already locked in for Q2 on this is like getting things on the calendar. I think I really want to just with the whole theme of this podcast, I want to live like a really big, full life and I want to just get out and do things. And towards the end of Q1, one of my friends and I, which I've mentioned this on the podcast before too, it's been an ongoing conversation, but one of my friends and I have talked about how, it's easy to just talk about all the things you want to do. And it's harder to actually make the time to schedule it and like put it on your calendar. And I feel like in Q1, I did an okay job of that towards the end, but I didn't do it consistently. And in Q2, I really just want to like sit down and be like, okay, I want to do this. Let me text my friend and make the plans. Random things too. Like I have been saying I want to go paddle boarding ever since I moved to Florida. Have I gone? No. So today I texted my friend and I said, hey, would you like to go paddle boarding on, it was literally, I was like April 19th, 25th, or 20, like it was like 3 weeks out. And we made the plan and it's in the calendar and we're going to let the rest of our group know. Like, but we're going regardless whether anyone comes or not. It's like I want to do more of those things because I think in Q1 I was a little bit I just didn't do that as much. I was a little passive about it and I don't want to do that in Q2.
I think this transitions us really nice into the next part of your Q2 reset, which is deciding what you want to happen in Q2, like really designing the Q2 that you want. And if you think about the months, April, May, and June, those are such big months of the year. Like you should be doing a lot in those 3 months. But as you just said, if you don't intentionally take time to plan what your months are going to look like and schedule things, I think they can kind of slip by. One thing that I did at the beginning of this month, I am like a big planner girl. I just love my planner. It's always sitting beside me while I work, but there's obviously a monthly view in my planner as well. And at the beginning of the month, I sat down with my planner and my budget and I mapped out my month and put things on my calendar and then mapped my budget accordingly. So when you're thinking about, okay, what does my budget look like for Q2 or what does my budget look like for April, May? Look at your planner and schedule things into your planner and then see how much those are going to cost you so that you can actually fit it into your budget. And that might mean, okay, in April, I can't spend as much money shopping or going out to eat because I do want to buy those paddleboarding tickets or however much paddleboarding costs, like things like that. But just like set time to actually do the things. I think the other big kind of underrated one is looking ahead at events in your city and actually putting on your planner to go. I just saw on TikTok the other day that this one bar downtown in Pittsburgh has rooftop yoga that's obviously seasonal. And they posted on their TikTok that it's open again. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't go to that last year. Like, if I don't go to freaking rooftop yoga this year, I'm going to be so mad at myself. They do it all the time. There's absolutely no reason why I can't make it to one. But those are the types of things that if you aren't intentional about putting them into your planner, you're not going to go to rooftop yoga.
No, you will not go to rooftop yoga if it's not. I was dying because you said paddleboard tickets, and I'm like, you're so cute. I'm like, because you're it's so cute. You don't live nearby the beach. You just get a paddleboard
No.
and you just literally go to the water and you
Where do you
just
buy
go
a
out and
paddleboard
paddle.
at?
You just like Amazon, a paddleboard
Oh, you're
store,
gonna
like a
buy
Dick's
one?
Sporting Goods. Well, I'm borrowing one from my friend so that I don't have to buy
Okay,
one.
okay.
And she has two inflatable ones, so we're gonna pump them up and take them out. I'll report back on how that goes because I'm a little worried that I am going to spend more time in the water than on the board.
I've been paddleboarding before, but like I rented a paddleboard, which is why I
Oh,
said like paddleboard tickets because you
yeah.
had to like book it in advance
Okay.
and the whole
Okay.
thing. But
Yeah, it's like a thing here. Like there's like a paddleboarding club and people go out every like Thursday, I think. It's like 100 people. It's like a huge group. So it just seems really fun. It's one of those things that's like I've always wanted to do. But okay, on this topic of like deciding what needs to happen in Q2, I am so passionate about this topic. And if you have not listened to our like what was it, the calendar, the title of the episode
how
had the
to
word calendar.
intentionally fill your calendar.
There you go. Erin, it's funny because I write the titles of these episodes, but Erin knows them better than I do. She's like, in episode 43, we talked about like, I never know. But I just think like, I don't know why and what has kind of like overcome me in the last like 6 months of my life, but I'm 27. I turned 27 in November. I'm turning 28 this year. I just feel like if I do not actually put things on the calendar, life is going to pass me by. And I feel like maybe it's because like I just feel like, I'm seeing my parents who are getting older and hearing my parents say things like, "Oh, I always wanted to go to this place," or like, "Oh, I would love to go here," or "I would love to do that thing," or "Oh, I've never had this experience of doing whatever." It almost like pains me and I don't want to end up being in my 80s and being like, "Oh, I wish that I got to go and do this." And I know like there will inevitably be something that I say, "Oh, I wish I got to go and do this," but I just think that if we don't take our time seriously on this earth, like it will pass us by. And there's just been this fire that's been lit under my butt, and I'm really getting things on the calendar with like Q2 for me. So I took like an hour this past weekend and I took my whiteboard out and I just mapped out my goals for the year in all the different categories of life, like finances, career, fun, whatever. And then I mapped out what I want to do in April, May, and June. And what I decided on is I'm calling it like my big three. So it's like three things that I want to do in that month in order for me to feel satisfied with like how that month went. So for example, like one of my April things is to go paddleboarding because I'm like, I'm tired of talking about it and I actually want to do it. So I'm just going to literally put it in the calendar. I also want to go on a solo trip, but I might have to push that back to May because of some other trips that are happening. But it's just like those kinds of things, like pick 3 things that I'm going to do in that month and just like actually schedule them. And then after I mapped out my goals from the year, I sat down with a piece of paper and I wrote out each month of the year that's remaining. And I was like, okay, what are the big things happening? Like my dad's birthday, my mom's birthday, Christmas, my birthday, like things I know are like already happening, like a conference I want to go to. And then I looked at my goals and I had my Google Calendar too. And I like was like, okay, I'm going to go and slot these things in. And so I did. As a result, like I literally decided, you know what, which my dad doesn't listen to this podcast, so I can say this because I think this will come out before he knows. But I bought my dad Red Sox tickets for his birthday, and we're going to go to a game and I'm going to fly home in May. And I was able to do that because I looked at my calendar and said, okay, let me move things around. Like, what are my priorities? My family, this. Okay, I'm going to slot this in. One of my goals is to go home more often. Okay, I'm going to literally just make the choice. There's already so many things on the calendar now. As a result, like my April is so full, but in such a good way that I know I'm going to end the quarter really getting things done. I just also think that we can spend so much time thinking about what we want to do and not doing them. So I've also just been giving myself deadlines. Like I said to myself about the tickets, because I was going back and forth on like, okay, like, should I take him to this game or to this game? Do I think he'd like a Friday or a Saturday better? Where should I sit? Da da da. I was like, okay, I don't want to spend more than this much on the tickets. I'm going to make the choice by the end of the morning. I did it as my one thing, like my one pre work activity one day was I'm going to buy the tickets. I only have till 9 a.m. when I start work. And I bought the tickets and I said, there we go. I'm not going to hem and haw about what I could have picked. I'm just going to pick them. And that's been honestly like, I don't know, really, really, really productive.
I love that. On the topic too of, not letting your life pass you by and making sure you're actually doing the things you say you want to do. I think that making more of a point to see your friends is a big one as well. This is something that I was thinking about when I was in Florida because it was 7 of us girls and we all live in different states now, or at least all different cities. I think 2 girls live in Florida, but like not the same city, so it's like kind of far away. And the last time that we were all together was 18 months ago. And granted, I've seen a couple of them since then, but 18 months was the last time that we were all together. And like, obviously, it's not super feasible to get together with 7 of your long distance friends all the time. But I do think that that was a reminder to me that I don't do the best job of making an effort to see my friends, even the friends that live in Pittsburgh with me. There's a trend going on social media right now that's like, catch up culture is ruining your friendships, like catching up with your friends or like your friend
Mm.
activities being rooted around catching up is killing your friendships, which that is so true. That is
Yeah. I
so
was going
true.
to say, I
Like you
love
see your
that.
friends, yeah, you see your friends once a month or once every 2 months and it's, "Hey, let's go to dinner and catch up." And then you're sitting there for 4 hours catching up on what happened over the last 2 months. Why haven't you seen your friends for 2 months? And obviously life is busy, but I think this trend on social media is around instead of just catching up with your friends all the time, how do you make more standing appointments with your friends where you're actually doing something so that you don't have to catch up with them? Like maybe it's every Tuesday night you play tennis with them, or once a month you do whatever other hobby that you and your friends like to do together, or you go to the farmer's market together every Wednesday afternoon, whatever it may be, but just like put it on a regular cadence and actually follow through with it. This is something that I have a couple of full time creator friends here in Pittsburgh. And we always talk about making like a standing appointment for co-working. Like, okay, let's go to a coffee shop every other week or once a month and co-work together. And we never follow through with it. When the week comes, we always push it back, which is so annoying. But like, just go see your friends. Time is passing you by.
Yeah, I've had that realization, which we also talked about this in the How to Intentionally Fill Your Calendar episode. And again, if you haven't listened to that one, it's such a good one to listen to. But we talked about this in that episode as well. Like, you have to be the initiator. That's like one thing that I have learned as well. Even with like this whole, oh, me putting everything into my April calendar. There's just like one friend in my group that I was like, I have not hung out with her one on one that much. And a couple months ago, I don't know if she listens to the podcast. If you are, girl, hey, because you'll know exactly who I'm talking about. But I was like driving her home from a friend's birthday dinner, and we had this conversation about how, like, I was like, yeah, like I'm kind of new to the group, and I don't know like how close anyone really wants to be with me. And she's like, no, I want to be your best friend. And I was like, no, I want to be your best friend. And we were like, okay, great, like let's hang out. And then we would see each other in groups, but we weren't hanging out one on one. And we hung out one on one like once or twice. And I thought to myself, like, we all get this perception that everybody else is so busy, and I've talked to my friends about this, and they'll say, "Oh, I just didn't wanna ask you because I just feel like you're so busy." And I'm like, "I am busy in the sense that, like, I have things on my calendar, but that's the thing. I just need you to slot it in on my calendar. Like if you say, "Hey girl, what are you doing this Saturday?" I'm just going to say, "Yeah, I'm free." And I'll put it on my calendar. Or if there's already something, I'll say, "What about next Saturday?" Like I'm not like so busy that I'm like absent, but I think we all have this perception that everyone is busier, is just so busy and never has time. And so I texted her today and I said, "Hey, would you like to go for a walk or go to a workout class next week?" And we picked a day and now it's on the calendar. And then same friend I said, "Let's go paddleboarding." And we were planning several weeks in advance. Like I think sometimes we have to just be the initiator who just reaches out and asks people to do things. And also when you reach out and you ask someone to do something and they say, "Oh, I'm busy that day," don't take it as a rejection. Just say, "Oh, what day? Like what day can you do it?" And pick another day instead. I texted a friend today and I said, "Oh, do you want to go to the market this Saturday?" Because she's a friend that I haven't hung out with one on one in like a month or so. And she was like, "Oh, I'm traveling home for Easter weekend." She's like, "I know another girl in the group was saying that she wanted to go." So I'm like, "Okay, cool. I'll reach out to her." You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't have to be a whole thing, but I think time will pass you by if you don't actually do those things. And sometimes you have to be the one to initiate those, like, friend get togethers or keeping the standing meeting. I have a friend group of like entrepreneur creator friends. We have a standing co working every Wednesday. And I have not been able to go because I was sick and traveling on the last 4 Wednesdays, but it's in my calendar to go next week. And like, I do think that's a good way though to like stay in touch with people and make it happen.
Yeah, and like you said, be the initiator, but come with plans. Don't just text your friends
Yes.
being like, "Oh my gosh, we need to get together. Let's do something soon."
Mhm.
No, let's go to the market on Saturday at 10 o'clock in the morning. Like, come with
Yes.
plans, whether it be you saw on TikTok that whatever bar downtown is having rooftop yoga, or you saw that this other bar is having like a wine tasting class. Like one of my friends and I, we did that and it was so fun. And we found out that this specific bar, it's like a winery, they do like one class a month and it's always a different theme. Like there are so many things going on in your city that you probably don't even know about, but like go spend 10 minutes researching what's coming up and then text a friend and ask them if they want to go. But yeah, I love this conversation. And like you just said, if you haven't listened to the intentionally filling your calendar episode, it's only a couple episodes back. Definitely go listen to this after this episode because Q2 is such a good time to prioritize your social life and go out and do fun things because time is going to pass you by if not. But with that, I think that brings us to the end of today's episode. This was a fun one. I love these quarterly reset episodes. We do them every single quarter. But with that, thanks for tuning into the podcast and until next week.